Welcome back to Sound 101. I'm Andrew from DD Microphones, and on this episode, we're going to show you how $100 of accessories can turn your video microphone to sounding really, really good. The first thing we're going to do is set up our camera. This is step number one. So I've got a little 50mm lens. I've set this up at eye level. Now step number two, now we've got our camera, we're going to position our key light. So our key is very important because it's going to determine where everything else in the whole set is going to go. So step number three, we're actually now going to finally start setting up our audio. Now I always like to extend the smallest section of my boom arm first, so that if I need to extend more, I'm not having to walk further out there. I can stand closer to my stand and secure everything if I need to get a little bit more length, because it's right there closer to me. Now I'm actually going to position this so that one leg is actually facing the talent. I always like to do that because if a stand were to ever fall over, it's going to fall that way, this way. It's never going to fall into the talent. The idea is that your talent doesn't need to be there when you're setting up, especially if you're interviewing someone very important, like a CEO or some kind of business owner, and they're the one hiring you. Come in, rough everything in. Once they arrive, you can sit them down, and then you're just making minor tweaks to your setup. My light, my backlight, my stand. You don't need to have them to get the basics set up. Step number five, we're actually gonna run the audio now from our microphone to our camera. So what we're gonna do is actually we're gonna take our 3.5mm TRS cable and we're gonna insert it. And what I can do is I can immediately secure it to the pole. What we're gonna do is we're actually gonna spin that right there. Now I'm here, I can actually take this, my slack, and again, what we're gonna do is we're gonna spin this around the pole a little bit. So I don't have any giant hooks. I have nothing for them to loop onto when they're trying to duck down and get underneath my pole. It's nice and clean. So when talent arrives, they think, wow, I'm working with a professional. What we're gonna do is actually now plug in our 3.5mm jack into our DSLR. I'm actually gonna take this and tie it around the arm of our tripod. What that allows us to do is really get a nice secure kind of thing. And if this gets tugged on, it's tugging on the arm and not the jack, so we're not actually stressing out our camera, and we're protecting the jack and making sure we don't lose audio in the middle of the shoot. Step number six is actually setting up the settings on your camera. For Canon cameras, you're going to simply hit the menu button, and then in the menu setting, it's called sound recording. In other cameras, you can actually check your manual. Sometimes it's called sound, audio input, levels, volume. And if I dive into this, you'll notice we have manual and automatic. We're going to be using manual today because we are in full 100% control of our sound in our environment. But if you're in a setup where it's a live event, auto may actually work out better than manual. Because we're in manual, we can actually drop down to the next thing, and that is record level. And once we're in there, we can actually set this level by hitting select and going back and forth to see just how loud we want it. The goal is the person sitting down is actually going to be hitting -12 dB on your VU meter. Some cameras call this 0 VU. If you're in the Lumix system, they can only go down to -12 before going to mute. So really kind of check your manufacturer. So if you're in a VU meter system, 0 VU, or if you're in a dBFS scale, just like the Canon is, -12 dB. Well, we have finally arrived to the last step, and that is step number 7. Talent is now on set, and it's that time that I've been talking about. We're going to fine tune everything. The first thing we're going to fine tune is our light, so we can make all of our adjustments according to that. Now, remember I talked about earlier, we did set up a light because we were going to be talking about how the light plays into sound, and that is shadows. So I'm actually going to wave my little stand around, and I'm looking for any kind of reflections on his forehead, any kind of shadows that may be adjusting brightness across his face, but I'm not in the perfect position. I could actually be roughly around in there for my audio, tighten this now up, and I bet I could actually rotate a little bit and come a little bit straight down. That way I'm just about 6 to 8 inches above him, and then about 3 to 4 inches in front of him. So I'm actually shooting across his chest and his mouth area and not just into the top of his forehead. I'm also going to pay attention to my back wall to make sure I don't have any shadows from my key light spilling across this bookshelf. I don't, because what we've done is actually put another light behind the couch altogether, and that is shooting up, and that's going to wash out any possible shadows. So we've got a beautiful light set up. We have our microphone in the position, and we're now to the point where we can do a mic check with talent to confirm we're getting that -12 dB in our camera. To do that, what we're going to do is now plug in a pair of headphones into our camera. If your camera does not have headphone jack, you may need to get yourself a little audio mixer, but you really should actually get something with a headphone jack because you want to make sure what's being recorded is actually being, good audio. Because even if the mixer sounds good, if the levels in the camera are distorted, it's just it's just distorted. I mean, there's no way around that. We are at $25 for the headphones, $10 for the cable, $45 for the stand, and there you go. You've got better audio, and let me show you exactly what I mean. Here's the before. Tell me more about what it was like to start your own business.
It was great. I mean, honestly, it was a lot of hard work that went into it, but the end result was fantastic. You know, it resulted in my life being my life. I could do what I wanted to, work as hard as I wanted to, and I don't know, it really changed everything for me.
And here is what we're about to capture right now with this wonderful setup.
I feel like the schedule is the easiest part about it. You don't have to, it's really, you're making your own schedule every day. So every day you wake up, I can work 4 hours of overtime, I can work 10 hours of overtime, or I can just not work that day.